Well, my friends, that debate was painful. It was like watching a deer in the headlights right before it goes through the windshield of a Ford F-150 on a country back road. Tim Walz was an utter calamity. First off, Kamala Harris has no one else to blame but herself. She should have chosen Josh Shapiro, but instead she chose Mr. Jazz Hands, Tim Walz. The way Tim Walz answered questions in that debate, it was like when you catch your dog with something in its mouth. He wanted to run off the stage like Usain Bolt, but instead he had to sit there and take it. Now, as expected, the moderators really only fact-checked JD Vance, even though Tim Walz lied multiple times and tried to cover up the truth. But this woman, I don't know who she is. In fact, the hardest part of the debate for me was finding CBS on my television. Now, Miss Calamity Harris, I imagine she's doing one of three things right now. A, panicking. B, finishing her 14th margarita. Or C, all of the above. Now, before the debate, J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, went on TV and said, Tim Walz is your friendly neighbor. He's the guy down the street you want to watch your kids. I don't know about you. If I had kids, I would not let this man watch them. If Tim Walz fixed me a drink, I'd really look at that drink cockeyed. Now, although I don't think this debate is going to do much to change the race, JD Vance did 10 times better than Tim Walz. In all honesty, I thought JD Vance went really easy on Tim Walz. Tim Walz had the audacity to go on stage and say, just mind your own business. Mind your own business. In 2020, Tim Walz set up a hotline to report your neighbors for going to church or hosting barbecues. And Tim Walz once again got caught up in a lie and said, I misspoke. He said he was at Tiananmen Square when he was not at Tiananmen Square. They were like, sir, were you at Tiananmen Square? And Tim Walz is like, I chewed bubble gum and jumped on a pogo stick and did 3 cartwheels back. Now, because I call it like I see it on both sides of the aisle, I have to say I do feel a little bit bad for Tim Walz. It is an impossible task to go on stage and defend Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's record. Trying to defend Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on immigration, the economy, inflation is like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. It is not a good idea. Now, Tim Walz did warm up as time went on, but he did most of his debate prep alone in a room with Mayor Pete, the Secretary of Transportation, which is probably Tim Walz's ultimate fantasy. In politics today, optics really matter. You could tell a few weeks ago that Kamala Harris had really rehearsed her facial expressions. Tim Walz had not. During the debate, Tim Walz looked like the moderators had asked to see his browser history. He looked like he got caught on an episode of What Would You Do with John Quinones. Now, Blue Steel here, JD Vance came 1,000 times more prepared than Tim Walz, but the fact of the matter is, JD Vance has done all of the Sunday morning shows, he's done dozens of interviews. Tim Walz has only done one national interview, and Kamala Harris sat there next to him. When are the people around Tim Walz and Kamala Harris going to learn? Doing the basement tour and hiding out from journalists and reporters and interviews is not helping you guys. If Tim Walz had been doing hardball interviews every few days on national television networks, he would have been much more prepared for this debate. Now, you guys know I'm not owned by the RNC or the DNC. I just call it like I see it. The only thing I'm beholden to is the truth. And the one area JD Vance really flubbed was when Tim Walz asked, was the 2020 election stolen? Republicans, please listen to me. Relitigating January 6th and the 2020 election is not helping you. If I were JD Vance, I would have said, sure, the 2020 election was fair. It's over. Joe Biden's been the president. We've seen his horrific policies. Now let's move on to what's going to happen on November 5th. I would have brushed past it, but his non-answer did not help him at the end of the debate. All right, my friends, thanks for liking and following. Drop a comment. Tell me what you thought about JD Vance, Tim Walz. Do you think this vice presidential debate changes anything? I will see you on the next one. Bye.